Good evening. Hey, Lily. Hi, Ava. Hope you're feeling better. Thank you for coming. Oh, it's warm in here today. So my friend made me some more beaded bracelets. She found the pink beads and she had to get them for me. And so she made me 2 more bracelets. Warm in here. Hope y'all are doing good today. And a long day for sure. I didn't get up until after 8:30 this morning. Don't eat that. Excuse me. Don't eat it. Of course, I go live and Copper thinks it's time to play. You're cold down here? Come up here and suck up some of this heat. No, it's warm in here for some reason. Anyways, menopause is not nice. Anyway, alright, let's go ahead and get this thing started. I'm Sandra, I'm an alcoholic. Please be kind to people in the chat. Just because they're in the chat or they leave a comment does not make them the alcoholic. They could be here supporting my channel or supporting a friend or family member that may be part of AA, or learning ways that maybe they can help their loved ones or friends to become sober. So just be mindful and no judgment, no harassing. This is all a free of those zone, so please just be mindful of other people that are here. That is awesome, Ava. That is awesome. I'm proud of him. Really proud of him. All right. Let's say a serenity prayer. God, grant me serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So, I always put in the description what we're reading. In other words, what book we're reading or what I'm reading out of. Also, I put the page and the title of what we're reading or what step or tradition or whatever I'm reading. You're very welcome, Eva. That's my whole purpose of doing these, is to help those who are at loss and don't know even where to begin. And that's how, stop eating it. That's how all of our families were when they first, when they first figured out that I had become the alcoholic that I fought my whole life for. And, my parents and my husband, they had no clue what to even do. And doing these and helping those family members that have the alcoholic know what steps that they could take to better understand what that loved one's going through in different ways to maybe help them out. I can't say it's guaranteed because nothing is ever guaranteed, but I can say it worked for me. So, in the front of the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions book is your 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. That's where I read them from. I don't read them anymore. 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defective characters. 7. Humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. And I am live on Facebook as well. So if you ever can't get onto the YouTube app, I also do it on Facebook. 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and become willing to make amends to them all. 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. Continue to take personal inventory and when wrong, promptly admit it. 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. I don't do the traditions because, well, they're tongue-tying. We are reading the big book. I call it the big book because it's big and it's blue and it's Alcoholics Anonymous. The biggest book you can get from Alcoholics Anonymous, I believe. Don't quote me on that. So I always put in the description what we're on and what page. And today we are listening to the wind on page 458. I read the whole thing earlier, so I went through and highlighted some things. I took an angel to introduce this Native American woman to AA and recovery. I started drinking when I was around 11 years old. I stayed with my brother and his wife just outside of Gallup, New Mexico. We were poor. The smell of beans and fresh tortillas symbolized home to me. I slept in a bed with 3 other children, where we huddled close to keep warm in the freezing winter. The snow was deep around us. I had a hard time reading and understanding schoolwork, so I skipped school every chance I got. Yeah. My dad and grandma had told me the old stories about the long house, and the travels of our people across the desert and mountains of this country. I met a boy, and together we ditched school and stole a truck. We drank tequila and explored the red mesas together. Sometimes we sat in the shade of the trading post directly across the street from the tracks. When the train rumbled through the dusty small town near the reservation, it promised glamorous places far away. When I was 15 years old, I arrived alone in San Francisco with a guitar, a small suitcase, and $30. I went to several taverns and coffee houses in search of jobs singing. I believed I could pursue a career as a performer. 3 days later, I found myself sleeping in a doorway to stay out of the rain that had fallen all day. I was broken cold and had nowhere else to go. The only thing I had left was my pride, which prevented me from trying to reach my brother by phone or finding my way back. The only people who ever really knew me. Sometime in the middle of the long, restless night, a kindly, middle-aged white man laid his hand on my shoulder. "Come on, young lady," he said. "Let's get you to some place warm and get you something to eat." The price he asked in return seemed little, considering the cold, rainy night behind me. I left his hotel with 50 in my hand. Thus began a long and somewhat profitable career in prostitution. After working all night, I would drink to forget what I had to do to pay the rent until the sunrise brought sleep. The weeks passed. I started stealing and robbed a gas station and a liquor store. I made very few friends. I had learned to trust no one. One night around 8 o'clock, a car pulled up to the curb just as I had settled myself half drunk against the wall of a building. I figured I had met my companion for the evening. We made the appropriate conversation to confirm the deal, and I got into the car. Suddenly, I felt a deafening blow to my temple. I was knocked senseless. In a desolate area across town, I was pulled from the car, pistol whipped, and left to die in the mud with rain falling softly upon me. I came to in a hospital room with bars on the windows. I spent several weeks there having repeated surgeries and barely recognizing my surroundings each time I woke up. Finally, when I was able to walk around a little, a policewoman came and I was taken to county jail. It was my third arrest in 2 months. Nearly 2 years on the street had taken its toll. The judge said I could not be rehabilitated and I was charged with 18 counts of felony. I would not see the streets again for nearly 26 months. I was 17 years old. The first few months I would have done just about anything for a drink. I knew I were powerless over the drugs, but I really couldn't see what harm there was in alcohol. In the summer, I was released. I wasn't sure where I was going, but a nice cold beer sure sounded like a refreshing celebration of freedom. I bought a six-pack and a bus ticket. When I got off the bus, I got a waitress job in a bar. By the end of my first shift, however, I had enough money to get a bottle and a sleazy motel room nearby. A few weeks later, I saw him, the only Indian I had met in a very long time. He was leaning over a pool table when I came to work. I put on my apron, grabbed a tray, and headed straight for him to see if he needed a refill. "Who let you off the reservation?" he asked. I was furious, humiliated, and embarrassed. That man became the father of my firstborn child. My relationship with him lasted only a few months and was the first of many mutually abusive relationships that would continue over the next few years. I found myself alone, drunk, homeless, and pregnant in a matter of weeks. Afraid that I would wind up back in jail, I went to live with my brother and sister-in-law. My brother had gotten a very good job and moved to Hawaii. My son was born there, and on the day of his birth, I found my purpose in life. I was born to be a mom. He was beautiful, straight black hair and dark eyes. I had never felt like this in my life. I could put my past behind me once again and move forward into a new life with my child. After a year or so, I became bored with my life in the island and the guy I had been dating. I said goodbye to my waitress job and my family and moved to California with my 1-year-old son. I needed transportation, but cars cost too much money. Where could I get lots of money? I did not seem appropriate to go back to prostitution in the same town where I was raising my son. I could take the bus to the next town, work all night, and come home in the morning if I could get someone to watch my little boy. The night job paid well as long as I didn't work close to home where my child would attend school. Everything would be fine. Also, I could drink on the job. I kept the welfare, though, because it provided health insurance. I did quite well financially. After 1 year, I found a beautiful, large apartment that had a view of the ocean, bought a new car, and a purebred collie dog. The social workers started getting very nosy. I could not figure out what their problem was. I led a double life. By day, I was super mom, and by night, I was a drunken hooker. I met a wonderful man at the beach, and we fell in love. Everything was like heaven on earth until he asked where I worked. Of course, I lied. I told him I worked for the government and held a top security clearance, which required complete secrecy. That's why had to work nights, undercover, out of town, on weekends. Now maybe he would stop asking so many questions, but instead he proposed. We moved in together and my working arrangements became nearly impossible to live with. So did my conscience. One night on my way to work, I sat in rush hour traffic on the freeway. I broke down in tears and felt all the lies of my life burst open inside of me. I hated myself and I wanted to die. I couldn't tell him the truth, but I couldn't continue to lie to him either. Suddenly a great light came on. It was the best idea I had ever had. If I got off the freeway at the next ramp, drove home, and told him I got fired, he took it well and we celebrated with a large bottle of wine. Tony, thank you for coming. It took a lot of booze to cover the nightmares of my past, but I was sure I could get around this small problem before long. I never did. The relationship broke up over my drinking, and I packed my little car and moved myself, my son, our dog, and 3 cats to the mountains. This mountain town was a place I had visited as a child with Dad and Grandma. Memories of the stories of my childhood and our Indian people flooded in. I got a job cleaning cabins for a local resort lodge and got back on welfare. Shortly after our move, my son started school. By this time, I was consuming nearly a fifth of tequila each day, and blackouts were occurring on a regular basis. One day, I got up as usual. The next thing I remember was feeling so shaky I could hardly stand up. I ate a tablespoon of honey, hoping it would give me the necessary sugar rush. The next conscious memory was the emergency room. They said I was suffering from malnutrition. I was nearly 30 pounds underweight. They had the audacity to ask me how much I drank. What could that possibly have to do with anything? I promised I would never do it again. For the first time in my life, I tried very hard to quit drinking. After a few days of the shakes and nausea, I decided that a shot of tequila wouldn't hurt. I had managed to put on a little weight, but 6 months later, I collapsed and was diagnosed with a bleeding ulcer. I was in the hospital for 4 days that time. They told me that if I didn't stop drinking, I would probably die. My son called his grandparents, and they traveled to the mountains to visit us. I had not seen them for years. We got along much better than I expected. The relationship they formed with my son was incredible. My dad took his grandson hiking in wilderness, and Mom helped out with looking after him while I worked. My health continued to fail. My parents wound up moving to our town. In an attempt to help their grandson and me. My dad and I decided to go on a Native American gathering. I hadn't been to one of these powwows since I was a child. When we heard the drums and watched the dancers, I felt some great passion well up inside me. I felt like an outsider. I wanted a drink. I wore my hair down to my waist and wore a lot of turquoise jewelry I have collected over the years. I looked like the people, but I certainly didn't feel like one of them. I felt as if they all knew something I didn't. In an effort to prove I was getting better, I started hitting the streets again in order to make more money. I told my parents that I was going down the mountain to visit friends. I received my third arrest for drunk driving on one of the trips back. After working all weekend, the night in jail seemed a long time to go without a drink. Weeks and months passed, and the blackouts continued getting worse. Then I met a man in a local bar. I didn't like him very well, but he had quite a lot of money, and he sure liked me. He took me to nice restaurants and bought me expensive gifts. As long as I had a buzz on with a few drinks, I could tolerate him. One thing led to another, and we wound up married. The most powerful motive I had was getting out of the streets and being provided for. I had begun to think I did not have much longer to live. The faces of my doctors were looking more and more grim every time I went into the hospital to dry out. The marriage was a farce, and it didn't take long for this man to figure that out. Someone had told him about my past, and he demanded to know the truth. I was tired, nauseated, and drunk. I just didn't care anymore, so I admitted everything. We fought every day after that, and my visit to the hospital became more frequent. One afternoon, I decided I no longer wanted to live and got a gun from over the fireplace. I owed my life to the man I had married. He heard my child scream from out back and came running into the house. He come and couldn't figure out what had happened. My son was taken away from me by the authorities, and I was placed in a locked ward for the criminally insane. I spent 3 days there on legal hold. After I was released, most of the next few weeks was a blur. One night I caught my husband with another woman. We fought, and I followed him in my car and tried to run him down right in the middle of the main street in town. The incident caused a 6-car pileup, and when the law caught up with me later, I was sent to the locked ward again. I do not remember arriving there, and when I woke up, I didn't know where I was. I was tired I was tied to a table with restraints around my wrists, both ankles, and my neck. They shot heavy drugs into my veins and kept me like that for a long time. I was released 5 days later. When I left, there was no one there to drive me home, so I hitchhiked. The house was dark and locked, and no one was anywhere around to let me in. I got a bottle and sat in the snow on the back porch and drank. One day I decided I'd better go to the laundromat and wash some clothes. There was a woman there with a couple of kids. She moved around quickly, folding clothes and stacking them neatly in a couple of huge baskets. Where did she get her energy? Suddenly I realized I had to put my clothes into the dryers. I couldn't remember which washer I'd put them in. I looked into probably 20 different washers. I made up my mind how to handle the situation. I would stay here until everyone had left. I would keep whatever clothes were left behind as well as my own, As the other woman finished her task, she was writing something down on a small piece of paper. She loaded her basket and kids into her car and came back into the laundromat. She came right up to me and handed me the small blue paper. I couldn't make out what it said. I smiled politely and slurred a friendly thank you. Later, I made out the telephone number and the handwriting message below. If you ever want to stop drinking, call Alcoholics Anonymous 24 hours a day. Why had she given me this? And what made her think I was drinking? Couldn't she see that my bottle was soda? Of all the nerve, I was mortified. I folded the paper neatly and put it in the back pocket of my jeans. As the next few weeks passed, I became sicker by the day. One morning I woke up alone as usual. I hadn't seen my husband in a long time. I needed a drink and the bottle on the bedside table was dry. I rose on my shaky legs, but they refused to hold my weight. I fell to the floor and began crawling around the house, looking for a bottle. Nothing. This meant I had to leave the house and get to a store. I found my empty purse on the floor, but I knew I could never make it to the car. I became terrified. Who could I call? I never saw any friends anymore, and there was no way I could call family. I remembered the number in the pocket of my jeans. I hadn't even gotten dressed for several days. Where were the jeans? I searched the house until I found them on the floor of the bedroom. The number was in the pocket. After 3 tries, I managed to dial the number. A woman's voice answered. I got this number from you. Is this AA? I asked. Yes. Do you want to stop drinking? Please, yes. I need help. Oh God. I felt this fiery tear run down my face. 5 minutes later, she pulled into my driveway. She must have been some kind of an angel. How had she appeared from nowhere that day in the laundromat? How had she known? How had I kept her number all that time without losing it? The AA woman made sure I had no more alcohol in the house. She was very tough on me for a long time. I went to meetings every day and started taking the steps. The first step showed me that I was powerless over alcohol and anything else that threatened my sobriety or meddled my thinking. Alcohol was only a symptom of much deeper problems of dishonesty and denial. Now it was a matter of coming to grips with a power greater than myself that was very hard for me. How could all these white people even begin to think they could understand me? So they brought a sober Indian woman up to work with me for a day. That was a very powerful day. The Indian woman cut me no slack at all. I will never forget her. She convinced me I was not unique. She said these white folks were the best thing that ever happened to me. Where would you be without them? She asked. What are the alternatives? You got any better ideas for yourself? How many Indians do you know who are going to help you sober up? At the time, I couldn't think of any. I surrendered behind the tears of no answers and decided to do it their way. If you'd stop eating your toys, you wouldn't have that problem. The dog. I found the power greater than myself to be the magic above the heads of the people in the meetings. I chose to call that magic Great Spirit. The 12-step worked like a crowbar, prying into my dishonesty and fear. I didn't like the things I learned about myself, but I didn't want to go back where I had come from. I found out that there was no substance on the planet that could help me get honest. I would do just about anything to avoid working on myself. The thing that kept me sober until I got a grip on honesty was the love in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I made some friends for the first time in my life, real friends that cared. Even when I was broke and feeling desperate. At 22 months of sobriety, I was finally able to complete an honest inventory. The fifth step enabled me to see my part in my resentment and fear. In the chapter, How It Works, in the Big Book, I was shown some questions. The answers to these questions provided me with knowledge about my reaction to the conditions in my life. Every response to every resentment, real or imagined, had been sick and self-destructive. I was allowing others to control my sense of well-being and behavior. I came to understand that the behavior, opinions, and thoughts of others were none of my business, and thoughts of others were none of the only business I was to be concerned with was my own. I asked my higher power to remove from me everything that stood in the way of my usefulness to him and others, and to help me build a new life. I met my current husband in an AA meeting. Together, we carry the message to Indian people on reservations all over the country. I started at the 5th grade level in school when I had been sober nearly 2 years. After college, I started my own business. Today, I publish the books I write. Our daughter was born during my early sobriety, and she is she is in high school now. She has never seen her mother take a drink. Our family has returned to the spirituality of our ancestors. We attend sweat lodges and other ancient ceremonies with other people on sovereign native land. We take panels of sober natives into Indian boarding schools and institutions and share about recovery. My life is filled with honesty today. Every action, word, prayer, and 12-step call is is an investment in my spiritual freedom and fulfillment. I am in love and proud to be a Native American. At an AA meeting on an Indian reservation, I heard the word sobriety is traditional. I stand at the top of the sacred mountain and I listen to the wind. I have a conscious daily contact with my Creator today, and He loves me. Everything is sacred as a result of the 12 steps and the love and recovery of an Alcoholics Anonymous. Spots I highlighted, like I always do. What are the alternatives? You got any better ideas for yourself? How many Indians do you know who are going to help you sober up? And finding a higher power. I didn't read the whole paragraph, but the other alternative was to go back to where I had just come from. Trust me, I had done it already. It was a stupid move. It was stupid because being sober for a year, I thought, okay, well, I'm not an alcoholic anymore. This was before AA. I can go ahead and drink. I've been sober for a year. And so I went ahead and I drank. I went right back to where I had just come from. It was not smart on my part. And for me, I got the aha. Early on in my sobriety, I finally got that aha. Once I could get past, because I had been sober for like 3 months before I went to AA, I think it was. But I got my aha and started understanding that there was something that I could pass my bad and negative thoughts to, besides other people. I had to give it to the higher power to help me to understand that I couldn't do anything about that person. I could only do something about my part, and that was for me to mind my own business. Stay out of it. Stop, don't get involved. So I had to learn that. And I also had to learn how to be a friend. I was not a good friend when I was drinking. My brain was like, give me a drink, I'm good. And you're my friend, and that's how it is for an alcoholic. That's exactly what alcoholics go for. They don't care who you are, what you are. You got money, you gonna buy me a drink? All right, let's go. I mean, that's how I felt. I'm not afraid to say it because it's the truth. And I would go and ask people for money that I didn't know them from Adam or Eve, I'd ask him for change because I wanted to go get a beer in the morning. And then I was finally able to complete an honest inventory. The 5th step enabled me to see my part in my resentments and fears. some of my resentments weren't my fault. There was nothing I could have changed in that. And believe me, if I could have changed it, I would have, because I was the one that got hurt in that. And that was from being a child. And, yeah. Anyway, I owe it to a friend of mine who had gone back out to drinking more than once. They've told me about it. I don't say names because it's not my place. Obviously, they know that they messed up, and they had the courage to tell me that they did, and that's fine. I can't change them. I can't make them not do that because they already did, and I'm not going to judge them for it, because no. You're an alcoholic, you're welcome to AA all the time. It doesn't matter. And that's the best thing I learned about AA, is we welcome with open arms, and we help each other in our sad days, our bad days, our happy days, and a good day. And we help each other with everything. We inform each other of things, and like I've had 2 sponsors. The first one has been my sponsor since I started AA. That's because she answered her phone. And she's been there for 10 years, 10 and a half years almost. And I don't know what I'd do without AA or my sponsors. Because let me tell you, I would have probably already been out there, and I might even not even be here on Earth anymore. So I have to thank it to AA for my sobriety and giving me the steps and the tools to use to achieve sobriety everlasting, and working all of those things in my daily life, and knowing that my AA has to come first. Alcoholics Anonymous is number 1 in my life. And if somebody doesn't like me for that, walk away. Because this is who I am. This is my passion. This is my path. It says, my life is filled with honesty today. Every action, word, prayer, and 12th step call in an investment in my spiritual freedom and fulfillment. Absolutely. Absolutely. But my life has become filled with different perspective on how other people think and what they think of me. It doesn't matter. I've learned to just block that out. Block it out. It's not worth me worrying about what somebody else thinks. Somebody could call me whatever the hell they want to, and it's gonna hurt my feelings, yes. But in the long run, I can't tell them how to feel or what to say. I can only control me. I can't even control my dog, so he has an attitude sometimes too, huh? Yeah. You miss your butt head most of the time, huh? Yeah. You got the toy now? You got the Kong ball now? Maybe that'll last longer than 5 minutes. Anyways, but like I always say, your sobriety has to come first. You cannot control anything if you cannot control yourself. And also, the only thing that you want to control is yourself. You don't need to be putting somebody else's problems on your plate. And what I tell all my sponsees when I first get a sponsee, and most of them have become my best friends, is if you cannot take care of you, you can't take care of your kids, you can't take care of your house, you can't take care of any other thing. And if you're sober, you have your mind that's clear, you can work your steps with clear eyes and clear head and open heart, open mind, and it's not an easy road by any means. Even today, I still have my bad days, but I'm still sober. I still wake up. I'm happy to be alive, and I just go on my day. And it's I don't know. AA just works. It's worked. I know some old timers, or knew some old timers. They passed since. Even one of my sponsors was an old timer. That you have to use your voice and always work on you first. And don't forget that service work. My service work, what I've done for my service work is I'm doing it here, number one. Number two, I have some of the best friends that anybody could ask for. Just because I have said in places that I have worked, hey, I'm a recovering alcoholic. Yeah. I've never, since starting AA, I've never shied away from telling anyone that I'm a recovering alcoholic, because that's what I am. That's who I am for the rest of my life. And I have to be okay with that. And I get to share it here with all of you guys. And it helps. I'm helping you while helping me. You're welcome, Tony. Thank you guys for greeting each other in the chat. I'm gonna go ahead and get on to my daily reflections. Of course, it wants to update. Alright, so I got it up now. So I have an app on my phone. It is Daily Reflections. It's free. They have an audiobook on here. They have the book that you can just read, the 12 traditions, and the magazine subscription is on here, all kinds of stuff. And of course, the daily reflection. So, March 22nd, my birthday's next weekend. Woo-hoo. No more struggle. And we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. Alcoholics Anonymous, page 84. When AA found me, I thought I was in for a struggle, and the AA might provide the strength I need to beat alcohol. Victorious. in the fight, who knows what other battles I could win. I would need to be strong, though. All my previous experience with love provided that. Today, I do not have to struggle or exert my will. If I take those 12 steps and let my higher power do the real work, my alcohol problem disappears all by itself. My living problem also ceased to be struggled. I just have to ask whether acceptance or chance is required. It is not my will, but his that needs doing. Amen to that. Anyways, again, thank you guys for being here and being a part of my sobriety journey. It's not all been easy, but still going, still kicking it, staying sober, plan to stay that way. And with that, I will let you guys go after we say the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. Love you guys. The heck? Computer didn't want to end the